What's up, everybody? Good evening. One last wide receiver video for free agency, one last look at the depth at receiver this season, and then we move along to other positions. So I know this has been a little bit of you might call it a little bit of a slog because we've spent so much time on these lower level players, but I do think the Seahawks have a serious couple of decisions to make here with their low level players. I don't think there's any guarantee that any of the guys on the bottom half of the receiver depth chart are going to be here in 2025. So a veteran is on the table. So let's go ahead and take a look at some more guys here, low level guys like Zach Pascal. Zach Pascal, or I guess it's Zach Pascal. Zach Pascal. I know I've looked at him in previous off seasons as a free agent, but that was many years ago. He has not really done anything in the last 3 seasons. He's been on the Eagles and he's been on the Cardinals. He has 19 catches combined over his last 3 seasons, including 0 last year. Not a single solitary catch. He was a pretty good depth / moderate number 3 receiver before then, but that was a while ago, and now he's just turned 30. It's probably not going to get better. So he's just a guy who's going to hang around in the NFL, but not much more than that. You go back to 2022, which was the last time he had any real production at all. PFF 61.1. You know, it's whatever. It's okay. It's not good, that's for sure, but it's worthy of a depth spot on most teams. 1.5 million on 1 year. Can't go too wrong with that cost. 1 year, 1.5. Why not? I mean, he's a veteran at this point. He knows what's up. He knows what's good in this league. Noah Brown. This is a guy who might actually ascend a little bit. He had a nice year for Washington, and he had a nice year for Houston the year before. He was a pretty good receiver for the Cowboys in 2022. He's had 3 straight pretty productive years. I don't think he's a guy that I want to be handing a starting job or a big role or responsibility in my offense. But there is some stuff here with Noah Brown that isn't too bad. Like I said, over the last 3 years combined, you're talking about 1,500 yards or so. You're talking about 110, 120 catches. He can do some stuff for you. Pretty productive. Okay PFF score last year in the bottom half, but only barely. Year before that, he was in the upper half. He was actually considered to be one of the better receivers by PFF. So don't be surprised if this guy sneaks up on people and ends up getting a little bit more than people think. Botrack has him at 1 year, 1.5 million. I could see a little bit more than that, and I could see somebody looking at him as a fringe starter. But for me, I'm just looking at him as depth. I think that's probably the more intelligent way of looking at a player like this, who's never had that big breakout season of even like 800 yards. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 2-time Super Bowl champion, has had some pretty decent moderate success in this league as a part-time starter, has had 700-yard seasons, has played a lot of games on teams that have won a lot of games, won Super Bowls. But these last 2 years, really, it's kind of fallen off to the point where it's tolerable, right? But it's not really anything that seems worthy of being a full-time starter. It's not anything that you would say, okay, we're going to give this guy the keys to the number 3 receiver position in our offense, especially because he's going to turn 31 in October. So you have to be a little bit careful here, but he still belongs in this league for sure. You take a look at last season, if you combine his Buffalo and New Orleans stint, 61.7. I mean, that's not good, but I guess there are worse. Year before that, you're looking at 52.1. Now, that is scraping the bottom of the barrel here. PFF, not a fan. Take that as you will. And Spotrac says 1 year, 1.5. I mean, not too bad. I'd like to do a little bit better. Definitely would aim for other players. But Marquez Valdes-Scantling will be on the market as a veteran backup. DJ Chark would be the next kind of veteran backup type guy that has had great years in this league before. He's not even 29 yet. He's going to turn 29 in late September, but he is far removed from his best years. He had a 1,000-yard year in Jacksonville, made the Pro Bowl, 700 yards the next year. Not bad at all. And then he just kind of settled down more into like a marginal starter role. And last year he had 4 catches on the season. Didn't play very much at all. Now, Detroit and Carolina, he produced okay. He produced at a level that marks him as like a fringe starter type. But after 2024, I don't think he's going to be able to get much in the way of any kind of real money. If you go back to the last year, he played a lot. PFF grade was poor, 60 flat, which is 73rd. The year before was better, still just around the average marker, 45th out of 92, but certainly workable. But this was 2022. Little bit in the rearview mirror now. Botrack says 1 year, 1.5. I'm not against this one. I think this would be a more appealing option than Valdes-Scantling personally. I don't know why he never did anything last year. I'm not a fly on the wall in the Chargers facilities. But if I had to guess, I would say that he still has some football ability left. Rondale Moore, taking a year off of football last year for assorted reasons. Spent 3 years on the Cardinals, produced okay, gave you about 1,200 yards across 3 seasons. You know, it's decent depth stuff. He's like a viable starter. There was a moment where it really looked like he was breaking out in 2022, but then he missed half the season. And now, at this point, he's just going to try to find a job in the NFL. This is another guy who's very small, but he's also young. He's going to turn 25 this offseason. His best years could definitely be ahead of him. This might be a fun flyer to take on a guy who is a depth piece, but could end up being more than that if you give him the appropriate opportunity. PFF did not like his 2023 for whatever that's worth. They thought he was one of the worst receivers in football, 82nd out of 85. Year before that, a little bit better, still not in love, still pretty near the bottom, if we're being honest, still in the bottom 25 percentile. I think the bottom 20th percentile if you do the math there. So we're still not in a good place with Moore, but again, for a reserve player with upside due to his youth, I kind of like this one. Botrack says 1 year, 1.5. That can't be too bad of an idea. Sign me up for this one. Rondale Moore, he's a lottery ticket. Minimum, he gives you good depth at a price that is appropriate for depth, but he might be more. Zay Jones, he's been in the league for a little bit now, actually, getting up there in age. He's hitting 30 now. Yeah, he's going to turn 30 in March. And he never had the big season, but just a few years ago, 800 yards, 80 catches, legitimate. He's had other pretty decent years in this league, too. It's just been a while. Last year for Arizona, he basically did nothing, not even 100 yards. Year before for Jacksonville was okay. He gave you 321 yards, I guess. I mean, that shows to me somebody who at least belongs in the NFL. So, limitations for sure. He's not very efficient, right? He's averaging about 10.5 yards a catch. That's not exciting. And he's only got a 58% catch percentage, but good enough to be in the league as a backup. PFF grade, last time he played significant snaps was 2 years ago. Pretty poor, 70th, 61.2. The year before, a little bit better. Still in the bottom half by a pretty wide margin, but just okay. 67.3 is, it's, for a receiver, not very good, but it also marks someone who belongs in the league. 1 year, 1.4 million. Sure. Again, I'd like something a little more exciting. This guy's been in the league long enough to know exactly what he is and what he can do, but not a bad idea. Not something that I would strongly object to. But yeah, Zay Jones. Got 2 more guys here. Robert Woods, another veteran, going to turn 33 this offseason. So definitely buyer beware. Had a nice career. Never made a Pro Bowl or anything, but he has had 1,200-yard season, 1,100-yard season. He's put up some 90-catch seasons. He's been a legitimate starting receiver in this league, a legitimate starting number 1 receiver in this league. But those days are long past. Last 4 seasons, he's been under 600 yards. Last year, he was at about 200 on a team that had, that had injury issues at receiver. And he played 15 games. There was an opportunity for him to produce much more than this, and it didn't come together. So 20 catches, 203 yards, 15 games on a team that had injury issues. You're pretty capped out now. But Still probably belongs in the league. PFF, not too happy with his 2024 season. We're talking 58.8. Not a good grade at all, really. And the year before that, not better, 60.7, just kind of middling. Not even, well, not middling compared to other receivers, but serviceable. We're talking somebody with a little bit left to give in all likelihood, but not a lot. 1 year, 1.4 million. Sure. Again, you definitely want to go a little bit more dynamic if possible, but Robert Woods, not a bad option. Final guy in this series, Jamison Crowder. Jamison Crowder, another veteran, going to turn 32 this offseason. Most of his years have been spent with the Redskins or football team or Commanders or whatever they were called at the times he was there. He had some nice years for the Jets. He went to the Bills for a year and did nothing. So he's been around. He's seen everything. He's definitely one of those veterans you can count on. But he really hasn't done anything for 3 years. So in terms of counting on him to produce, maybe not so much. You can count on him to be a veteran. So you're definitely betting on him reclaiming some of his former form from 2021, which that's always a dicey proposition. So the last year he did anything was 2023, and he barely did anything. PFF grade was 70.5. I mean, that's pretty decent, I guess, but it's still not good, and it's such a small sample size. Who cares? You got to go back to 2021 to find the last season where he actually did a lot of stuff, and it was okay, but this is so far in the past, it don't matter. Botrax says 1 year, 1.3 million, which is pretty much the minimum for a guy like him. I mean, I guess, but again, there's no upside, there's only downside with these older players. All right, let me know what you guys think. If anything stands out to you, see you guys later. Go Hawks. Moving on to a new position tomorrow.